Hi, I'm David.
Hi, I'm Yelena.
Welcome to our tutorial on backbending basics. We're going to talk about sort of some of the fundamental actions that you want to get into all of your backbends, basically, the rules that help you create safe backbends and a healthy spine. And we hope you like it. That's why we're doing it. And if you do like it, we'd appreciate if you would let us know, and also comment. Let us know what you want to see. Subscribe, share this with your friends, your family, your pets. Everybody needs to hear about it. Maybe that's overstating it. Yeah. Okay.
So backbending, neither one of us is a natural backbender. Meaning, you know, as teachers, we get people that come into the class all the time, and for their body to go into that direction seems quite fluid. I don't want to say easy because I'm sure it is still work, but the body just goes that way. The spine just bends that way. The legs support. But for a lot of us, it's a lot of work, and it is kind of unnatural movement because it's not the way we move. We go until certain range, and then after that, it starts to get really not so pleasant.
Yeah, nature doesn't really want us to go into a backbend too much, right? Just enough to put sunscreen on our back or whatever, but any further than that, nature really says, well, if you need something behind you, just turn around, right? Don't do a backbend. So what we're working against is kind of an end range of motion, that like an intuitive range of motion. And we have to start to become very strategic in our body, you know, about how we're going deeper in, which is to say the things that let us do something like arching the back just a little bit very naturally won't necessarily work if we keep activating those muscles or using those strategies to go deeper into a backbend, right? Because I'll explain what I mean. The glutes and the muscles in your back all like to retract and contract to create the opening in the front line, which works up to a point. But what we've found is that to go deeper into any of these postures, you're going to need to get a little bit more control over what's happening in the hips and the back. Okay, so what we wanted to look at today was just starting to learn about that control. And when we're doing our backbends, most of the backbends we're going to do are extension in the spine, so that's arching the back, and extension in the hips, like opening up the front line of the hips. And the hip extension, the best way to extend your hips is to squeeze your glutes, you know, and press forward. That's the easiest way to get this kind of opening here. But what our experience has been is that if you're relying on just that in your backbend, that you tend to start to get compression pain in the lower back. Now, it's not to say that your glutes don't have a role in backbending, they do, but we don't just want the glutes to be kind of calling all of the shots. So we want to get the legs involved in hip extension. And in fact, when we can get the quadriceps and the hamstrings to all act together in conjunction, then we can create hip extension without making the glute kind of the prime mover. Okay? So the first idea around the backbend that we want to introduce to you is strong legs and softening the bum. So your bum doesn't have to be totally flabby soft, right? It can be a little bit active, but we don't want to clench. We want to instead try to feel like Yellen is doing a camel pose now, but this could apply to all backbends. So we want to feel like we're pushing down through the legs to keep the thighs forward instead of squeezing the bum to keep the hips forward. Do you get that distinction? So Yelena is pushing the foot and the shin down into the floor. So look, if she's not pushing it and I pull, she can be in a little bit of an arch here, and there's not really anything going on, right? But I want her to push down through the foot to make the leg very active to come into that arch. And then if I try to lift her foot, I can't because she's bearing down so much. There wasn't really a huge difference in the shape of the back, you know. She wasn't in a deeper back bend, but the work of it was very different inside, right?
It was a lot more effort, and obviously.
Yeah.
And even when I do this for the purposes of demonstrating and I use my glutes to push the hips forward, I can immediately feel tension in my sacrum, in my lower back. I can feel it kind of centering there. Mm-hmm. And then if I was to try go deeper, then it gets sharper and sharper. At first, it's kind of bearable, like you can be with it.
Yeah. So we're going to stick right now with working on this in Ustrasana because it'll be the easiest way to kind of talk about it in the shortest amount of time. But again, I think this applies to most back bends. But we could say strong legs, soft bum, remember? And what's another way that we get our bum to really squeeze? Well, when we're extending the hips, we also usually tuck the tailbone. Do you know what I mean? We go into like a posterior tilt, which is like drawing the fronts of the hip bones back, pressing the bottom of the pelvis forward, and that'll squeeze your bum and also get that clenching action as well. So another way to think about this strong leg, soft bum, and also to start to create a nice shape in the back, is to let your hips go into a slight anterior tilt. Let the hip bones come forward. But you can see actually when Jelena does that, she comes out of hip extension, right? Because remember, we were using the glutes to extend the hips when we tucked the tailbone under. So now we have to use the legs to create the hip extension. So we're going to press forward through the feet and the shins and use the thighs and the hamstrings to get the hips to come forward. But we're also going to keep the bum nice and soft. And the hip bones are coming forward because the hips are extended like that. But it didn't require us to squeeze the glutes. Okay? But when you do that, one of the things that works when you tuck your tailbone and squeeze your glutes is that you also engage your core more. You get all of these muscles here and these muscles to really strengthen and squeeze, and that can create a lot of support for your back bend up to a point. So what we need to do is still try to create that support, but not necessarily make it come from tucking the tailbone under. So we're going to use the legs to press the thighs forward, stay in the anterior tilt, but try to open up the front of the hips with even more leg strength. And then draw in on the lower belly. Really draw in, pulling in just below the navel, suctioning in. And you can really see, watch when Jelena lets go of it here. Watch where her chest is. And then when she pulls in, do you see that lift that happens as she kind of gathers all the strength around the core? She's kind of bundling herself in the lower body, and that's lifting the rib cage away from the hips. And that's creating space in the spine, creating space between the ribs and the hips. And that's the space that we're going to use to bend into. All right, so this is kind of just a very beginning primer on getting into deeper back bend, strong legs, soft bum. If you go to our website, you'll see actually we do have some in-depth courses on back bending as well, and we will do more tutorials on it.
And it's important to remember that just because you've watched this tutorial and then you step on your mat, it doesn't mean that you'll be able to find these actions right away. We've given you actions, we've given you a technique, but it takes long time to cultivate that kind of awareness in your body and be able to say, you know what, turn this muscle on, but turn that one off, or maybe like just bring it down a notch. That takes time and repetition, which by now as a practitioner, I'm sure you already know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but go slow. Give yourself time to feel it out. Practice it. You'll get better at it.
We hope this was useful to you. If so, let us know by commenting and telling us what you want to see next. Like this tutorial, subscribe to our channel, and maybe share it with someone else who would benefit from these tips.
Bye.
Bye.